Let's go on a journey from moving from fear to courage to ultimately a hero. Welcome back, Mere Mortalites, to another edition of the Mere Mortal Book Reviews. I am Juan, host of the Mere Mortals podcast and a part-time supporter of the Mere Mortals Book Review, it seems, because you don't see me as often as you see my other co-host, Karen, but that is nothing to do with him and definitely to do with me, but I've got to have the courage to put that out and say that as well. Today, I have got Courage is Calling, Fortune Favors the Brave by Ryan Holiday. Now, a little bit of a piece as to why I'm reviewing Ryan Holiday, in case you haven't been listening to the channel for a little while. I'm on a Ryan Holiday trend right now, on a burst of a few things. Reason, for me, as an annual goal, I wanted to pick up a lot of Stoicism and the ideas around Stoicism. I didn't particularly want to go back and read some of the old Senecas and Epictetus. Karen has done that, and I've taken a lot away from his book reviews. So I said I want to do it in a different way. So these Stoic virtues that I found within the works that Ryan Holiday actually writes about, I went, cool, I'm going to begin there, and if I need to, I'll go and reflect back. So that's a bit of an idea. Now, unlike the previous three books that I've reviewed from Ryan Holiday, which was Obstacles Away, Ego is the Enemy, and Stillness is the Key, this is actually a new series, the Stoic Virtues series, which is Courage Calling, we actually say it's at the top there. And that actually confirmed it for me, that this is a new set of series that Ryan's going to be writing about, beginning with courage, the other ones being wisdom, justice, and another one that now I've forgotten. But this marks a bit of a new start, and I went, well, let's see how much of a difference this makes in comparison to the previous book. Let's see if it's a completely different setup. However, and getting into synopsis, it isn't by much. So Ryan Holiday keeps to its very traditional way, once again, of splitting the book up into three big sections. Now, for the Courage is Calling, we've got fear, we have courage, and we have heroic, the heroic. Sounds like very sexy words there to actually get into. Now, Courage for me, I thought, look, I think it's going to be like an enjoyable book. Let's see how he structured this one. And if you know Ryan Holiday, you'll probably understand as I'm reading to you what this particular chapter structure is. But again, it's short, it's punchy chapters, usually no more than 5 to 6 pages in length, although this particular book actually has shorter ones and even punchier ones. Now, one of the key differences I have found here is that Ryan here does away with a lot of the quotes that were found in the previous one. So again, in say Stillness is the Key, there would begin a conversation of quotes by a particular known individual or known quote. Then it would go into the storyline of a particular person, how that action reflected on them, the particular intent of the action or the idea, how it applies to any individual, any Mere Mortalite, and then back again to looping it to the story. Where it shifts a little bit in Courage is Calling, does away with the quotes apart from the big summary pieces, and sometimes just jumps in quite straight into the idea, and that's why you probably see them be a little bit punchier. So there's still the flavor of using notable figures, notable historical events to present an idea, but also in other ways just goes directly into, hey, this is why the idea applies. Here's how it's seen in a particular context. Again, I'll give you an example here of, let's just go on the way to just a few seconds of courage, right? So in just a few seconds of courage, again, it's 4 pages. It's even like shorter than you like. And it just goes straight into 1960, Martin Luther King Jr. was arrested for trying to enter a restaurant inside Rich's department store in Atlanta. Bang, again, just a quick chapter of, the idea, why a few seconds of courage mattered. And unlike the previous books, I guess in my sort of feeling as well, when looking at this book, is that Ryan is much punchier on what the idea means to your life. So in absolutely every single one, and not often did I see this as hard pressed, I guess, in some of the previous books, is very much, hey, this is why it's actually good. This is why you need to take some sort of action. I'll go to the you can't beat the odds. And again, the ending of this, and you don't really have to know the majority of what this is talking about, is still there is no escaping. Sometimes we must be brave enough to defy the odds, but we do this only when there is real chance of success, and we do it rarely when we have no other choice. And again, it applies to the majority of the chapters. In fact, it'd probably be like 95% plus, where the ending is punchy, which precedes a very punchy chapter, and it kind of leaves you going, oh, cool. awesome. I really enjoyed that particular read. I can see myself applying it. Cool. On to the next one. It was very similar to Stephen Pressfield's War of Art, where I really felt in that one, like, you could read a chapter or two, pick it up wherever, take it away and go, wow, that was amazing. Awesome. Cool. I kind of could pick it up and read it at another point or pick at random spots. So I had that feeling about this. The final piece I'll probably talk about, the synopsis, is, again, he does have an afterword piece, and he very much, and he seems to do this in a few of the books, Ryan, but he does it really well here. Again, talking about, why is he qualified to talk about courage, right? Is anybody really qualified? Yeah, maybe not. But again, he goes into the ideas of, there's some of the experiences that I have. Here's my failures in courage. Here's the things that I'm trying to improve in courage. Everything I've written back here, it's not, he's applying to the 100%, maybe nobody is, but it's giving examples of where it has been applied, where people went from fear to courage and courage to being heroic. And again, that progression through the book's actually done incredibly seamlessly, and I really, really enjoyed those step throughs. Now to some of the themes of the book. So look, courage is virtue and virtue is courage. So it was a key piece of we're talking about, it's a virtue series, but it's kind of like one leads the other and the other one leads it back onto itself. Also talking about the fact that many of the virtues, the other virtues of wisdom and justice, you really can't have without that key courage, right? Without that drive of courage, that ability to face the unfaceable, sometimes beyond all logical limit, logical, idea. And this is probably where it gets into the heroic nature. You're probably not going to see all of those other virtues really succeed or come out to the top. Another piece of the book as well was the really fear. Fear is the first thing to grasp, but then ultimately moving through to the courage and ultimately being heroic. So there was a quote I wanted to bring up as well. While fear wants to be delivered, courage wants to do. And again, there's other examples of quotes like this, but there's the deliberate and the expected feeling of fear wanting to root you to your place, not to move, and courage, and really through the theme of the book is it's to move, it's to do, it's to take action. I've seen this in many other ways, and I like starting to see it in different facets of life and ideas and thoughts, that fear can be something that everybody feels, but it's got to be something that doesn't stop you from taking that action. And so the many chapters and various stories throughout here, and the very detailed dissections of those particular ideas, I think for me, as a summary of the key theme, I go, okay, it's a take it on the chin that you're going to feel that fear. You're going to be put to the hammer in a lot of different things, especially if you're trying to achieve something that people don't want you to achieve, or you don't want to do, and all the way to being heroic sometimes. So there's a lot of conversations in this one around the Spartans at Thermopylae, and the fact that there was 300 of them and how many they had to kind of try to defend. And the reality is, and the courage that they faced was, or applied, was they probably weren't going to coming back, right? And it goes into the story of day 3, I believe, or day 4, when all of them are dying. But it was enough. It was enough to actually pull off the heroic and allow the rest of Greece to either move on or become stronger to fight the incoming Persians. To me, there was a feeling of, I can see how that applies also similarly to my life and in other ways. And so the theme of it was quite strong, for me at least, while I was reading that. And then finally, the other theme I wanted to pull out as well, that it wasn't prescriptive in itself, and it never really is with Ryan Holiday, which I think is a really good thing. So what do I mean by this? So I already talked about that it was punchy towards the end, and it kind of was saying, hey, this is what needs to be done. This is what's got to be done. But it wasn't prescriptive as in like, hey, you need to go and do this to make it work. Hey, you should be doing this, and this is what you should need to do the next day. Sometimes with some self-help books, if you want to call them, or philosophy books, they can trend towards this, hey, this is exactly what you should be doing. No, I'm not saying that's wrong. Maybe you do need sometimes to be exactly told what to do. This one doesn't in many ways. It's just, again, placing the idea, saying why, and really that everyone has to take that action. Again, probably borrowing from the idea of courage to being heroic. It's got to be a very selfless. It's got to go towards a bigger purpose. And the way that it was sort of finished up isn't prescriptive to, hey, I'm not telling you to do this, but I've laid out enough of a reason as to why you want to take that step to be courageous, to be heroic in some instances. Finally, personal observations myself. Be scared, but don't be afraid. Well, was a clear example, really. And Ryan himself talks about it at the very end with the American Apparel piece around how he found himself being scared probably throughout, but throughout the demise of American Apparel. If you haven't read into that, you can either read the book or go and read the examples of what happened. Seemed like it wasn't great fun company to be working for many years. But it could be said that he was scared throughout it, but very afraid at the beginning to take the right choices, the courageous choices, the almost heroic choices at the start, where towards the end he could reflect back and look forward to understand how he could be doing those. So, there was that was an observation throughout, and also in personal examples that he placed forward. And that to be heroic is to go really beyond oneself, to give up almost everything in a literal and theoretical way for what you intend to achieve. And the personal observation I took out from this one, and in the examples that it gave, it sort of made me think, to be heroic, and that you can go by the definition or what, can be described as a bit of a summary of it, or the summary of what people sort of can name that to be. I went, you don't have to be heroic all the time. That was my sort of personal observation. It's, manage your fear or tackle your fear head on, or, work around it however you will, and become courageous. And there's a lot of the aspects around being courageous, and I'll read some of the subtitles of courage, right? It's the world wants to know, if not you, then who? Preparation makes you brave. Fortune favors the bold. You have to own it. All of these things that I went, yep, fear can stop that. But if you're owning what you're doing, if you're putting yourself forward, if you're, rather than asking, the world, why is it doing this? You're responding to what the world's basically asking of you and doing something. I go, I can see how courage applied into many places is really great. But in the heroic aspect, I go, there's been people, and there's plenty of examples here of people who have been heroic, definitely to the detriment of themselves, to death, to almost what might seem really irrational. Now, we might look at it as irrational, might not have been irrational to them. We can't really put that without a very, very, very close perspective of being in their shoes. However, I went, if personally for me, I was going to be to that level of heroic, you want to call it, there's maybe not a lot of things in my life that I would apply that to. Is that a problem? I don't see it as a problem, but it did make me think quite a bit around that differentiation between courage and heroism, which I wouldn't have previously. So I think the distinction and the definition that it talked through in this book was pretty masterful. I'll get that out there, pretty masterful. So in finality, what's a summary for Courage's Calling? What is my thoughts on the new series, The Stoic Virtues by Ryan Holiday? Loved it. Absolutely loved it. For me, 8 out of 10, which is right up there with some of the top books that I've read before. It's a piece that I would come back to quite often to reread. It wouldn't be a book that I would read cover to cover. However, if I'm thinking of a particular thing in my life, whether it's fear, courage, or maybe from a heroic perspective, I might just pick up this book and read a quick chapter. Why? It's 3 to 4 pages. It's punchy. It can get me going. I found it quite often hard to read this book consecutively, because I would always read a little bit of the, whichever chapter really, and go, damn, that was, what you want to call it, motivational. It was enlightening. It was whatever. Insert, how you feel when it's positively when you're reading these sort of things. And it made me want to do stuff. So I found myself, I read some of it and go, you know what? I should be going and do this, and I can go and act in this better way in this particular virtue, I would say. So what it's made me feel is I'm really looking forward to the rest of the Stoic Virtue series. Reading The Stillness is a Key, and if you want to go check out that review, you'll see what I thought about it. But I almost wanted to go, you know what? I've had enough, Ryan. That's enough, Ryan. I've sort of learned enough of the Stoic principles that he's talking about and summarizing a lot of great ideas of the world. But this almost rekindled my love for a lot of his writing. I think this is probably right up there with Obstacle is the Way. Absolutely enjoyed it, and I cannot wait for the rest of the series. So, Ryan, thank you very much for putting together Courage is Calling, and that has been the review for Courage is Calling, Fortune Favors the Brave. Now, folks, if you've enjoyed this particular book review, I would always ask of you to support us in the best of ways, which is leaving comments, sharing the review with somebody else, sending through a Boostgram if you want to send through a bit of a comment and some value, you can do that through all of the great podcasting apps out there that allow it. Fountain, Breeze, Curiocaster. Go and check it out. We talk a lot about it as part of Value for Value in our main Mere Mortals podcast. But if you check into the monthly summaries, we also talk to the boostgrams that have come in, the support that people are sharing with us in terms of the value that we're presenting, and we're hoping to get some value back from yourself as well. I'll leave it at that. I hope you are well wherever you are in the world. Juan out.